Hello everybody, my name is Rainer and this is Rainier Books. I'm calling from Stockholm, Sweden, from the south of Stockholm. Tonight I want to give you a video that is dealing with another top 10 list. And this time it's about Canadian literature, or CanLit, as the experts used to say about Canadian literature. 2 weeks ago, I've got an email from the Scotiabank Giller Prize Award. I'm on their mailing list. On September 6th, they will announce the long list of this year's Scotiabank Giller Prize of 2022. And now they published a list called Craving CanLit, which you can see on their website, but which you also can download as a file for Excel. I went through this list and looked for the 10 titles that interest me most. Maybe those are the 10 titles that will get nominated for the Scotiabank Giller Prize on September 6th. So this is my top 10 Craving CanLit list, but also my early prediction for the long list of the Scotiabank Giller Prize. Let's go. The first book that I found interesting on the list was some kind of a thriller. There were lots of thrillers on that list, but this is a different one, not so typical thriller. The author is called Anthony Bidulka, and the novel is called Going to Beautiful, and it was published by Stonehouse Publishing in Edmonton, Alberta on May 1 of 2022. This novel is a story about a very successful chef. His name is Jake Hardy. He's a celebrity. He has a great career. He has everything that you can dream of: friends, a happy family, and a beautiful and faithful dog. But then he has an accident and his world is turned upside down. Struggling to recover from his accident, he finds himself in a strange new world, a snow-swept prairie town that time forgot, a place where nothing makes sense, cold as beautiful, simple as complex. And doubts begin to surface about whether Jake's tragedy was truly an accident after all. As the sun sets in the land of living skies. I had to look that up. The land of living skies is a nickname for Saskatchewan. His glamorous 78-year-old transgender neighbor his neighbor find themselves ensnared in multiple murders separated by decades. In Bidulka's love letter to life on the prairies, he delivers a story of grief and loss that manages to burst with joy, tenderness, and hope. Going to Beautiful brings us unexpected, underrepresented characters in settings that immediately feel familiar and beloved. Beautiful, a place where what you need may not be what you were looking for. And that's the thing that brought me to this novel, actually, that interested me to this novel, the set of pretty unknown characters, that you have a chef who had an accident, who's recovering from it, and his 78-year-old trans neighbor, and they get sort of into a very familiar storytelling kind of a environment, murders that happen over decades, and they are right in the middle of it, and that sounded very interesting. And also the land of the living sky sounds beautiful. So that is Saskatchewan. This is Going to Beautiful by Anthony Bidulka, my first title on this list. The second one is published by Hamish Hamilton, it will be published by Hamish Hamilton Canada on September 13 of 2022, in about 3-4 weeks from now. This is A Minor Chorus by Billy Ray Belcourt. An urgent first novel about breaching the prisons we live in, aside from one of Canada's most daring literary talents. An unnamed narrator abandons his unfinished thesis and returns to northern Alberta in search of what eludes him, the shape of the novel he yearns to write, an autobiography of his rural hometown, the answers to existential questions about family, love, and happiness. What ensues is a series of conversations, connections and disconnections that reveal the texture of life in a town literature has left unexplored, where the friction between possibility and constraint provides an insistent background score. Populated by characters as alive and vast as the boreal forest, and culminating in a breathtaking crescendo. A Minor Chorus is a novel About how deeply entangled the sayable and unsayable can become, and about how ordinary life, when pressed, can produce hauntingly beautiful music. A chorus, a minor chorus by Billy Ray Belcourt. The next one is, I don't know if you got this from the song title, because there's a song title, very famous Canadian band, one of my favorite bands in the world, and a Canadian band and a great singer. And the song is called Help, I'm Alive. Ba-dee-da-da-da-da-dum. I don't know if you heard it. It's the band Metric. And the novel is called Help, I'm Alive by Gurjinder Basran, that was published by ECW Press on May 10 in 2022. A powerful, emotional story of 4 people touched by a teen's death. Award-winning author Gurjinder Basran's Help, I'm Alive is a clear-eyed exploration of meaningful connection in the modern era. After video footage of Jay's death is shared on social media, a suburban Vancouver community is left to try to make sense of what happened to Jay and whether his death was an accident or a suicide. Help, I'm Alive explores the aftermath through the eyes of 4 people all suddenly confronted with who they have been and how they should be in the wake of such a loss. Unflinching but life-affirming, Help, I'm Alive is a Gen Z and Gen X coming to terms story about loneliness and connection, love and suffering, and the moments that bring us together and the moments that drive us apart. We stay with the music. We had the minor chorus, we had Help, I'm Alive, and we have The Music Game by Stéfanie Clermont, translated from the French by J.C. Survliffe, published by Biblioasis on February 2022. So this is French CanLit. Friends since grade school, Céline, Julie and Sabrina come of age at the start of a new millennium, supporting each other and drifting apart as their lives pull them in different directions. But when their friend dies by suicide, we have it again here, in the abandoned city lot where they once gathered, they must carry on in the world that left him behind, one they once dreamed they would change for the better. From the grind of Montreal service jobs to isolated French Ontario countryside childhoods to the tenuous cooperation of Bay Area punk squads, the 3 young women navigate everyday losses and fears against the backdrop of a tumultuous 21st century. An ode to friendship and the ties that bind us together, Stéfanie Clermont, award-winning The Music Game, confronts the violence of the modern world and pays homage to those who work on the hope and faith, and it can still be made a better place. Maybe it can become a Wonder World, because that's the 5th title on my list. Wonder World by K.R. Byggdin, published by Enfield and Wizentry on April 15, 2022. I like this about my list here, that I chose a lot of small Canadian publishers, like Enfield and Wizentry. I'd never heard of them before. 27-year-old Isaac Funk is broke, drifting and questioning his lonely existence on the East Coast. Having left his conservative hometown of Newfield, Manitoba, full of piss and vinegar, Isaac's dreams of studying music and embracing queer culture in Halifax have gradually fizzled out. When his grandfather dies and leaves him a substantial inheritance, Isaac is pulled back to the prairies for the first time in years. Finding his father Abe just as enigmatic and unreachable as always, and his extended family more fragmented than ever, Isaac begins to wonder if there will be ever a place for him in Newfield. Is the prodigal son home for good, or is it time to cut and run once more? Well, the novel maybe tells us that. The next one is Dandelion by Jamie Chai Yoon Liew, published by Arsenal Pulp Press on April 26 in 2022. When Lily was 11 years old, her mother, Sui Hua, walked away from the family, never to be seen or heard from again. Now, as a new mother herself, Lily becomes obsessed with finding out what happened to Sui Hua. She recalls the spring of 1987, growing up in a small British Columbia mining town where there were a handful of Asian families. Lily's previously stateless father wanted them to blend seamlessly into Canadian life, while her mother, alienated and isolated, longed to return to Asia. Years later, still affected by Sui Hua's disappearance, Lily's family is nonetheless stubbornly silent to her questioning, but eventually, an old family friend provides a clue that sends Lily to Southeast Asia to find out the truth. Winner of the Jim Wang Chu Emerging Writers Award from the Asian Canadian Writers Workshop, Dandelion is a beautifully written and affecting novel about motherhood, family secrets, migration, isolation, and mental illness. With clarity and care, it delves into the many ways we define home, identity, and above all, belonging. Another French novel translated from the French, and I'm happy about that I have these titles on this list. The Ghost of Zuzuko by Vincent Brault, translated from the French by Benjamin Hedley and published by QC Fiction in June 2022. Vincent returns from Montreal to Tokyo, where his lover has passed away in tragic circumstances. So begins a sensual and disturbing tale of love and grief, of foxes, artists, and taxidermy, somewhere between the Sumida River, the Tsukkie Fish Market, and a contemporary art gallery. Brault flirts with magical realism and ghostly Japanese tropes beneath the bright city lights as Vincent loses his bearings to the Tokyo tremors and goes in search of the ghost of Zuzuko. And I think as a remark here, as far as I know, and I think it's true, French novels translated from the French are not eligible for the Scotiabank Giller Prize. So this is, the better title for this is 10 books, 10 craving CanLit books, and not 10... the list, my prediction for the Scotiabank Giller. The English-speaking novels might be in that list, but not the French, unfortunately. The next one I'm very interested in. This is Cambium Blue by Maureen Brownlee, published by Harbour Publishing on March 5, 2022. Maybe a favorite. Set in the British Columbia interior, the novel Cambium Blue is an homage to resource towns, independent women, and local newspapers. In 1994, at the outset of the bark beetle epidemic that will decimate millions of acres of pine forest in western North America, a fiercely independent lumber town faces a bleak future when its only sawmill is shuttered. Encouraged by a provincial government intent on transitioning the region from timber to tourism, the town council embraces a resort developer as their last best hope. A failure to anticipate the human cost of that choice ignites a struggle for the very soul of the community. Cambium Blue's narrative alternates between three viewpoints. Stevie Jeffers is a timid 24-year-old single mom who stakes her future on the town after a traumatic breakup. Nash Malone is a reclusive Spanish Civil War veteran who supplements his pension with salvage from the local dump, an occupation that puts him on a collision course with the town's plan to beautify itself. At 55 years old, cash-strapped and short-staffed Maggie Evans is treading water while waiting to sell her dead husband's newspaper, the Ballysolvin Chronicle. As the characters' lives intertwine and the conflict heats up, they will each be challenged to traverse the ambiguous divide between substance and hype, past and future, hope and despair. Rich with unforgettable characters, and set in the interior hinterland of British Columbia, Cambium Blue is a masterful and compassionate illumination of the human politics of a small town and the intersection of individual lives with political agendas and environmental catastrophes. Very interesting. I like the characters, the different characters. I like the setting in a small town in the hinterland of British Columbia. That reminds me of John Mellencamp's I was born in a small town, probably die in a small town. I can breathe in a small town. That's good enough for me. And number 9 is Why I'm Here by Jill Frayne, published by Newest Press on May 1, 2022. 15-year-old Gail is desperate to get out of Whitehorse, a fact that is immediately clear to Councillor Helen Cotillard when Gail walks into her office with her reluctant stepmother. It's 1995, and one counseling agency for kids and families serves all of the Yukon. Gail has been having anxiety attacks, the last one so severe it landed her in the hospital. Helen soon begins to realize that Gail's distress at being separated from her little sister Buddy too closely parallels a calamity from her own past. This tragic similarity leaves Helen uneasy about her profession and her ability to help her clients. When Gail does escape back to her home in Cobalt, Ontario, to protect Buddy from their brutal mother, she risks her own future. Through arresting, compelling images, Jill Frayne shows both the fierce beauty of the Yukon and the damaged, enduring landscapes of two human hearts. And the last book of my 10 books, Craving CanLit, is Avenue of Champions by Connor Kerr, published by Nightwood Editions in November 2021. Daniel is a young Métis man searching for a way to exist in a world of lateral violence, intergenerational trauma, and systemic racism. Facing obstacles of his own at every turn, he observes and learns from the lived realities of his family members, friends, teachers, and lovers. He finds hope in the inherent connections of indigenous people to the land and the permanence of culture, language, and ceremony in the face of displacement. Set in Edmonton, Alberta, the story considers indigenous youth in relation to the urban constructs and colonial spaces in which they survive, from violence, whitewashing, trauma, and racism, to language, revitalization, relationships with elders, restaking land claims, and ultimately triumph. Based on Papasche's and Métis oral histories and lived experience, Connacht Kerr's debut novel will not soon be forgotten. And this is my 10 books from the Craving CanLit list, 10 Canadian reads that you should read, that you might read the summer of 2022. In September, on September 6th, I think a couple of these books will appear on the long list of the Scotiabank Gila Prize. Thanks very much for watching this video. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below what you have read of Canadian literature this year, what you are craving CanLit, and see you soon in another video. Thank you. Bye-bye.